Welcome back, everyone. It's Dr. Hanson again with the second installment of our lesson on entrepreneurial music teaching. I hope you took some time to view those videos and witness some of the amazing, unorthodox, outside-the-box teaching going on in music classrooms throughout the world. I also hope you see that these teachers weren't starting businesses or coming up with completely novel inventions. They were, however, creating new value for their students, which is our working definition of an entrepreneur. Okay, so you've seen how all of this traces back to motivation and self-determination theory. You've come to understand that an entrepreneur is an individual who transforms ideas into enterprises that create value. You've learned that there are different variants of entrepreneurship, and you've seen 3 great examples of entrepreneurial teaching on YouTube. Hopefully you're wondering, how does this work? Because I want to do it. Many people conceptualize entrepreneurship as a linear process, as you can see in this diagram. First, you set goals, you identify an opportunity, find the resources, and develop it to create value. Seems neat and tidy, doesn't it? Well, in truth, it's a bit messier than this. Other people conceive of the entrepreneurial process as a recurring cycle with essentially the same elements as the last model. Discover an opportunity, write a plan, gather the necessary resources, manage the launch, and harvest or reap the rewards. Then you begin anew with a different idea. Again, this might work for some people, but the reality is that true entrepreneurs use a completely different thought process that's not represented in these models. These models are based on the idea that entrepreneurs find an opportunity, set a goal to pursue it, and then carry out plans to narrow in and achieve that singular goal. That's called causal logic, and it's really not how entrepreneurship works. Causal or managerial thinking is what the vast majority of people use when engaging in a task. It's certainly what we musicians use. Causal thinkers focus on predetermined targets and strategically work to predict where problems will arise as they pursue those targets. Think about preparing for a recital or planning a lesson based on standards and objectives. You see the end result first. You understand the expectations placed on you from external stakeholders like professors, and you work to hone, refine, and eliminate variance in your pursuit of that end goal. Recital preparation, lesson planning, these are great examples of causal logic at play in the lives of teachers and musicians. In fact, we professors teach you and encourage you to think this way. Well, effectual thinkers use a different approach. They see the future as something not to be predicted and accounted for, but something that is filled with endless opportunities and that can be shaped so that you can create your own opportunities instead of trying to find and exploit somebody else's. This is effectual thinking in a visual format, and it's loosely based on 4 interrelated principles. The first is called the bird in hand principle, and it's represented by this bird sitting on a hand over here. This principle states that the effectual process begins not with goal setting, but with an entrepreneur taking stock of their given means. That is, who they are, their core values and dispositions as a person, what they know, their expertise and experience, and who they know, their personal and professional networks. The second principle is called affordable loss, and it's represented up here by this wallet and this money. This principle represents how the entrepreneur takes those given means and creates a new enterprise based not on what potential that idea might generate, but on the acceptability of what it costs to bring it to life. So it's less about what might we gain from doing something, and more like, what have we got to lose by doing something? The third tenet or principle is called the lemonade principle, and it's represented by this lemonade pitcher down here. This involves leveraging surprises, mistakes, and early failures to redirect and reimagine your idea flexibly In other words, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. When you have early failures or little potholes in the road, you use those to make your ideas stronger. You don't get bogged down in them. And the last of the 4 principles is represented over here with this handshake, and it's called the crazy quilt principle. This says that true entrepreneurs tend to minimize competitiveness and rivalries in favor of cultivating partnerships that serve to fill in knowledge gaps and blind spots in their own skill set. Everyone needs a crazy quilt of partnerships in order to be successful and achieve their dreams. So when I think about effectual thinking applied to music education, I often think about my friend John Flora, who teaches general music at middle school number 7, which is an underserved urban middle school in Jersey City, New Jersey. His school is what you would call a difficult teaching context. There's little money for equipment and supplies. The students and their families struggle with instability and poverty, and a very large percentage of the student population is not fluent in English. In addition, John is not what you'd call a traditional music educator, although he looks very well dressed in that picture. He never took a single music class in middle or high school, and he spent his early adulthood years, running a landscaping business, bartending, delivering pizzas, and serving in the Marine Corps. He can't even really play an instrument at what we would call a proficient level. But John is definitely an effectual thinker, and he has used the sense of disequilibrium in his school to quietly build a program that makes the most of his given means. First, John might not be a highly trained musician, but he does know pop music and has played in bands for most of his life. So he bases his lessons almost entirely on pop music and songwriting. Second, John knows just about everyone in Jersey City since he grew up there, so he's established partnerships with all sorts of local, regional, and national organizations to get the supplies and funding that he needs. Finally, although John's school is located in a run-down urban neighborhood, it sits adjacent to a reservoir surrounded by a nature preserve, some of the only green space left in Jersey City. Now, John has an interest in science and environmentalism, so he designed an interdisciplinary project called Our City and Nature, Songs of Biodiversity. In cooperation with his colleagues in the science and art departments in his school, John taught his students about pollution, storm water runoff, climate change, and other aspects of ecology. His students calculated stormwater drainage routes and the age of trees growing on school property. They designed and planted a butterfly garden with benches they painted themselves in cooperation with the art teacher. And John led them on several excursions to the reservoir grounds so they could sit by the water, contemplate, and write original songs based on everything they learned. In short, it is an amazing, inspirational music program that has been recognized with state and national awards. And all of it is facilitated by John, a music teacher who will straight up admit to you that he does not have a primary instrument because he doesn't really feel that he is proficient in any performance medium. The lesson here is really important. If John was a causal thinker, he would have used someone else's standard for what a school music program should be to hopelessly try to establish an orchestra or concert choir or wind ensemble. And he would have failed, and subsequently probably exited the teaching profession. Instead, John used effectual thinking to take stock of the strengths that he and his students did possess, and through a crazy quilt of partnerships and a what do we have to lose mentality, he created something truly special. If you'd like to learn more about John in Middle School 7 and the songwriting and environmentalism project that they developed, I've included a YouTube link that documents the kind of activities and songs that they developed in that process. Now, as a final task for this lesson on entrepreneurial thinking in music education, I'd like you to complete a brief activity. get a piece of paper and something to write with, and we're going to brainstorm entrepreneurial opportunities that you might feel compelled to pursue one day. First, draw a straight line down the middle of the paper, both horizontally and vertically, so that you divide it into equal-sized quadrants, just like you see here on the screen. In the first quadrant, you're going to list your unique skills, knowledge, and experiences, both related to music and unrelated to music. For example, you might list jazz improvisation, strong people skills, interest in rock music, or that you lived in Tibet for 3 years. In the second quadrant, list the assets that you have at your disposal right now. This should include items and equipment that you own, and anything that you could obtain or utilize if you really needed to. For instance, maybe you own a collection of ukuleles, or you drive a minivan, or you own professional photography equipment. And you should also include that warehouse space that your uncle might let you use, or the fact that your friend, the web designer, promised to develop a website for you for free. Those are the assets at your disposal. In the third quadrant, create a list of people you know, family, friends, contacts at school or at church, who you could rely on to help you out with a new idea. Finally, in the fourth quadrant, list what you see as the needs of music students today. Perhaps you think they should have more opportunities to study multicultural or popular music, or that all students should learn to improvise or write original songs. So again, the 4 categories are your skills, knowledge, and experiences, the assets at your disposal, the people you know who might help you, and the needs of music students today. Once you have a pretty good list going in each of those 4 quadrants, I want you to develop at least 2 ideas for new enterprises that might be possible given the means at your disposal. Try to draw from at least 3 of the quadrants as you think about the kinds of innovative ideas that you could develop to enhance the musical lives of your future students, and where you might find the knowledge and resources to do so using the means you have on hand. There are no right or wrong answers, and it doesn't really matter if you pursue whatever resulting ideas you generate in this activity. The point is that you're learning a process for creating a future you want to live and work in as a music educator. So be sure to keep that sheet handy, as there's a short quiz that accompanies this lesson where I'll ask you to report on this activity and also to answer some questions about earlier parts of the lecture. Well, I'd like to thank all of you for listening, and I wish you nothing but the best as you continue on your path to becoming a music educator. This is Dr. Hanson saying bye for now.